Greetings, I'm Pillar Next to Station Gladiator with more Pillar Loves Tabletop Games. This is the last episode of Pillar Loves Tabletop Games 2nd edition. It is a game I've been waiting for to talk about. Horizon Zero Dawn. A game of hunters and monsters and deck building and dice rolling and trying to do well enough to prove your worth. It is, between the base game and all the expansions, brand new. Is about what I spent on StarCraft and the expansion used. Yeah, this is an expensive game, but I think it's pretty cool. Let's take a look. At the start of the game, you will have your choice of a hunter or huntress with a figure. You will have starting equipment for both melee and ranged attacks. You will have basic armor. You will have a deck of ammunition for your ranged weapons and special abilities to use over the course of a given encounter. You will also have a special path of experience that you can choose to take at each fork when you complete a certain level of encounter, which will do anything from providing extra weapons or abilities. Anything that does not go directly into your deck will mean you will have the cards made up for it with endurance cards. Endurance cards are a universal card that adds more volume to your deck, which will make you harder to knock out. You just simply read, draw a card. You don't want to get knocked out during a battle because if too many players get knocked out too often in an encounter, it ends in failure. If you're playing fully cooperative, even one knockout is enough to fill in the encounter. But once you have your character, you'll proceed on with the first encounter for the hunt. Every step of the way, you will encounter an increasing difficulty of challenges until you reach the hunter's call. You'll fight anywhere from small, somewhat easy to defeat creatures until you get towards the higher levels and eventually the hunter's call boss fight itself. For the base game, it's Sawtooth. The expansions add their own pathways leading to the hunter's call. The super bosses use a basic set for each of them. They just use the base set stuff, but it's entirely possible to use the encounter cards for expansions to lead up to the super bosses, which is probably for the better that way. There will be a lead hunter to determine which mission to go after. Excuse me. While someone who's basically in the back, the order, gets to decide on an event card to get a special advantage, such as, this hunter may draw a salvage card each time they get one or more glory points. Over the course of the encounter, you will fight monsters, creatures, whatever, machines, as they were. And in the process of defeating them, you will get glory points, which decide how well you've done in the encounter and get you sun tokens towards ultimately winning the game. You'll also get salvage, such as metal shards, sparkers, blaze, and chill water. I know I went right past it. Yeah, there it is. There might be some other effects to have happen as well. Like, oops, it still breathes. You barely snatch your fingers away. So as the machine lurches once more to life. Yeah. These components you get for defeating them will lead into market cards. So the higher the level of encounter you complete, the better the cards you get. However, the higher the level, the more resources they're going to require. The cards include weapons, ammunition, armor, potions, and modifications for your armor and weapons. It's entirely possible to hold on to your salvage until later, but then you're at kind of a disadvantage for the next encounter because you're still relying on your old stuff. It's ultimately your choice in the matter, but when you're on a hunt, you cannot be too prepared. So choose wisely. So when the encounter card has been chosen from the tracking cards available, it will be set up. There'll be map tiles placed so that the corners shown on the card match up with the tiles. Playing with 3 or 4 players, these will be flipped over, and there'll be more machines to fight. And then the machines you're actually fighting are going to be down here. For this one in particular, there will be 2 Watchers and a Strider. So, low level challenge should be easy enough. Sometimes the locations will feature extra terrain. For the most part, a lot of the terrain uses tall grass. Some of the expansion stuff adds water and tripwires. Sometimes they'll feature rocky outcrops and ruins or machine corpses you can loot. But then the machines will start on their locations, and then a hunter can be placed on any outer edge of the starting tile. You'll start out with a hand of 5 cards unless you have an ability that says otherwise. And then the lead player will take their first turn. So, activation step. At the start, you can discard anything from your hand and draw back up to 5. And then you can play, you can do 2 actions. You cannot repeat any action. They are sprint. To sprint, a hunter can move 2 squares in any direction, including diagonally. So, like, if I wanted to, like, get up to here for whatever reason. Sneak, which is move 1 square in any direction. Craft, where if you have any discarded cards, you can take the bottom 3 cards and shuffle them back into your deck. It is one of the rare actions that you can actually do both of them as craft. And then there's distract, where you choose a target square and a non-alert enemy within 2 squares of their hunter. The enemy immediately moves 1 square towards the target. Let's say we'll move in there. With the ranged attack, you have to have an ammunition card to go with it. You'll notice that the hunter bow and the hunter arrow icons match. So you will have those. It shows 3 orange dice combined. Let's see here. I believe the 2 on the left is its range. So I can hit someone here or here. And then the 2 on the right represents a critical effect. So, say I want to shoot this poor target that doesn't know what's coming. So there's 3. So 1, 2 makes 3. It has a defense of 1, so I believe it's taking 2 damage. And because I shot that bastard, it's now alert. There'll be things that make monsters alert. And then melee attack, where the hunter can resolve attack against an enemy using the melee weapon they have equipped. And I believe with the melee attack, you can do it against someone who's an adjacent square, but then you have to move in. So the melee attack will use the melee weapon, which will be 2 orange dice. That's discarded now. That's 2. And I believe this defensive 1 means, yeah. Now it's also possible to, when making an attack, to target a component. So the Strider, if I wanted to attack the Strider's component, has a blaze canister. So if I'm rolling to attack that, then let's see here. So I need to roll at least half of that to tear the component on them. And that's now damaged. And then now the tear value is reduced by half. That I can do it with, destroy it with 1 damage. When the component's destroyed, the hunter performing the attack will get a glory point. And place the destroyed component token next to it. So, and it will suffer those effects. So it's now on fire. And yeah, what else? Component damage value. Component damage value. Apply the damage to the enemy's HP. So they're taking 2 damage, and they're on fire for getting the blaze canister blown the hell up. So once the actions are done, we go to the enemy step. So the way enemies can be made alert. An attack is resolved against it even if it doesn't inflict damage, or it suffers damage. Another alert enemy is in the same square. Another enemy is attacked in the same or adjacent square. A hunter is in the same square at the start of the enemy step. A hunter is in an adjacent square at the start of the enemy step and isn't currently in tall grass. So if I just waited here, he just would have kept moving along. Or the hunter sprints into an adjacent square. Stealth is going to be the key to survival and victory in this game. But the problem is, if you fiddle around too much, eventually, because see, every turn they're going to keep following their patrol routes and eventually move off the board. In order to win the encounter, you have to get at least that many encounter points. The 2 Watchers and the 1 Strider are collectively worth 3. And you can afford to let like maybe 1 enemy off the board in this one. But if you can kill all the monsters, you'll get a bonus in salvage. So alert enemies will activate their little card. For certain creatures, they'll have like a deck of cards, and you'll just drop them one at a time every time they activate. So you'll check the condition. Is there not alert enemy within 2 squares? Yeah, because alert enemies get activated first. So 1, 2. Yes. Move 1 towards the closest non-alert enemy. And then yeah. So another enemy is the same. So until he catches up, these guys are just going to keep moving along. But if I try to melee this guy, that's going to immediately make him alert. And while they are pretty easy to deal with, I want to be kind of careful not to be, not get too reckless and end up with like a deck full of discards, and when this guy gets too close. So yeah, movement will be, they'll move towards things, or they'll move away from things. There are some enemies that don't like fighting, they just want to run. And then if they actually do get off the board, your mission becomes a little bit harder. Monsters have 3 kinds of attacks. The claw is a melee attack. When you're actually attacked by an enemy, you'll roll your armor value to protect yourself by that much damage. So the attack does 4 damage minus the 2. So what will happen is it'll go 1, 2. And then as soon as my deck runs out, I faint. And because I'm only playing by myself, that ends the encounter in failure. You don't want that to happen. Alternatively, an enemy can have a ranged attack against the closest hunter, or a pulse attack, which targets every hunter within range. It'll just radiate out. Sometimes you might repeat actions. Other times you might have certain conditional things like they will either move one towards the closest enemy or towards the closest hunter. So, as long as there's other enemies, they'll try to get close to them. But if there are no enemies left, they will go towards the hunter. And then try to fight. So, here's all their attacks. Oh yeah. Attack effects. There's, let's see here. See if I don't remember what page they're on. There we go. So it's possible to suffer from fire. Hunters take extra damage from it at the end of their activation. Enemies take 1 damage at the end of their activation and then discard the token. If an enemy is killed as a result of fire, the players get the encounter points, but not salvage or glory. And then freeze effects. A hunter with a freeze token, make an invade roll, must discard any critical hit results, which are like 1 in 6 chance. So, oops, I don't get to protect myself as well. While after the evade is resolved, discard the token. Meanwhile, enemies that suffer freeze, if they're going to be attacked by a hunter, the hunter ignores their armor value in resolving the damage and discards the token. And then finally, shock. A hunter that is shocked cannot play interrupt cards. I believe interrupt cards are... those are card cards. Where's the... let's see, I have any... there we go. Play this after a hunter destroys a component to draw a card from the salvage deck. So it'll be a exclamation point. Is an interrupt. So the hunter gets locked out of doing that for inactivation. An enemy that suffers shock, the first time they resolve an action on the behavior card, their activation ends. Yeah, those conditions can be real nasty when they start adding up. So yeah, the alert enemies will activate, and once they've activated, non-alert enemies will follow their patrol path. So he'll go there. It's possible that if sometimes the path will lead to the next board over. Other times I'll just leave it off the board. Again, try not to let it happen too much, or you can't beat the encounter. Eventually you'll just defeat them and you'll draw your salvage cards. And you'll get the encounter points, and once everyone's dead or moved off or whatever, as long as you have enough encounter points, it will resolve the end of the encounter in the maintenance step. Again, if all the enemies are dead, you'll get the bonus salvage. And then players can also choose to end the encounter if they're worried about ending it in failure, as long as they have enough points to do it. And then we proceed to the campfire phase, where with multiple players, the player with the most glory points gets a full sun token. We've got some tokens here. So there'll be a full sun token, a half sun token, and a blazing sun token. The other, the player with the fewest is going to get the fledgling token, which is what will let them get the events like clear heads prevail and other things. So if you want to be in charge of choosing, what path the hunting team takes, you want to go for a lot of glory points. If you want to be able to do sneaky shit, then go by all means. End up with few glory points. So yeah, there's a cooperative element, but at the same time you're trying to do well on your own to get the ultimate victory in this game. So yeah, once the suns are handed out, there'll be the market step with based on the level. Oh, but before that, you'll get to level up. So this is a level 1 encounter. So I have my choice of the bow or the trait. Because none of them are adding cards to my deck, and my deck gets bigger by 2, I'll make up the difference with the stamina cards. I think I call them endurance cards by mistake. So I'll get those 2 added to my deck, and one of these. If you replace equipment, the old equipment is out of the game. If you had any modifications on the old equipment, I think you can transfer to your new one. But depending on what you choose will affect what paths are open to you on your next level. So if I went with Scavenger, then I could choose either Lure Shot or Hit and Run when I completed level 2. But if I wanted to do Weak Point, I would have needed to take the bow instead. So that's part of what opens up the replayability in the game. What opens up the replayability in the game is choosing different encounters, choosing different cards to level up, playing with other expansions, and being different characters, and deciding on different equipment at the market. Yeah, the market will add like 1 weapon, 1 armor, 2 ammo cards, 2 modification cards, and a miscellaneous item. And then players can spend their salvage on that. Then players can choose to pass, but if all players pass in a row, the merchant step ends immediately. To add ammunition and miscellaneous item cards to their deck, a player may need to replace cards from within their deck to ensure they don't exceed the deck limit shown on the card. So yeah, ammunition and miscellaneous cards go into your deck, while weapons and armor go to the circle. When a card's been purchased, you'll draw cards from the deck until the same type as the purchased one has been drawn. Anything else gets discarded. If there are no more of the required card type remaining in the deck, the merchant step is over. And it'll go to the next tracking phase step. But eventually, whether succeeding or failing, you'll find yourself at the Hunter's Call. And that is an all or nothing mission. Either you succeed or you fail. If the players succeed, players will get half sun tokens. And if players fail, then there's no hope of joining the Hunter's Lodge. It's game over. But as long as they succeed in defeating the quarry, they'll get victory points based on their sun tokens. Blazing Suns are worth 3, bullets worth 2, halves worth 1. And even though they're all successful, the actual winner is the one with the most points, and they're the one getting into the lodge. If there's a tie, it's the player currently in possession of the leader token, if they're one of the tied players. Otherwise, it's possible for those tied players to win together. But yeah. Alternatively, there's cooperative mode, where you'll still get glory points and all that, but either all players win together or they don't win at all. There's also trading items so that players can exchange salvage and gear and modifications between them. It's an option. And then there's the little backstory stuff on all the hunters. The base game has the Nora Marksman, the Karja Warrior, Karja, Karya, I don't know if someone knows the right pronunciation. The Bannock Survivor and the Ostrom Portsmouth. But yeah, that's Horizon Zero Dawn. Combat game with a crap ton of miniatures, whole lot of expansions, big scary ass bosses to fight. Lots of replayability. Why the hell do I love this game? Because everything I just said. It's replayable with just even the base game is replayable, quite a bit replayable, and you can try out different skills with different characters and try looking for different things. If you come to this encounter again, maybe you can decide to go after this Watcher first, or go out of your way to get the Strider. It's interesting, This is a game by Steamforged, right there in the corner, who's also done. They do a lot of other games like Dark Souls. So I had the Dark Souls board game at one point. That game, the game kind of felt like a little too dark for my taste, a little too bleak. But I saw this game and it was like, okay, it's bright, kind of colorful, and yeah, it seems really hard at times, but I feel a better sense of hope out of this game. I like the customization with being able to, you know, modify weapons and armor. I like the flavor of this game a hell of a lot more. And man, I really want to paint these guys so much. I haven't painted miniatures for a game since the recent Doom board game. And I want to take up the challenge of painting these guys when I actually have time away from, the video project and everything else. But yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn. It's an excellent game. Totally recommend it. The tier list is the next thing coming after this video. So, I've gone over, 30-ish board games or so, almost. It's going to be a crazy tier list, because, yeah, I went over far more games that are going to be, like, lower than higher. I think this game's going to do pretty decently, because I think I'm mostly positive on it. It's just, for me, the tough thing about having this game is having all the expansions, having them all in one box. Makes transporting that thing a pain in the ass. But it's still a game I want to play with people. I have too many games I want to play with people. I need to find like maybe one to focus on for like maybe a month, and then learn that game as best as I can, and then run it. So it's probably going to be one of my goals later this year. Is running a scenario of this game. So here's hoping. It's been Pillar Next to Ancient Gladiator. Thank you very much for watching. Looking forward to the tier list and whatever video project I got after that, because I've been trying to stretch my brain for anything else I can do. I did the first Pillar List tabletop games, and I'm like, man, do I really need to keep talking about games? I don't know if people want to keep hearing me talk about games, but you know what? I want to keep talking about games because they freaking matter and they're worth fighting for. And damn it, I'm going to keep talking about it. So you know what? Here we go. See you next time.